What's up, family? Peace, peace, peace. I see it's one person in the room. Don't know who that is, but hope you come by. Hope you find something you can use while you're here. Okay. So, figured I had about an hour while I was doing to do this, but I got a phone call as I was coming online, and got a friend that's coming over. This is gonna be some interesting shit. But anyway, so I'm gonna try to get something in real quick, but not what I wanted to get in. um, I was kind of mulling it over, which book, what was I going to bring? And I think we're going to go back to the three imposters. A lot of the division that we see has been engineered. It's been engineered by colorism, as y'all can see over there on Truth Zone's panel and um, Smoke Signals panel, African American, whatever, whatever. A lot of um, divisions on colorism and um, inability to accept people for who they are based on a narrative or an agenda, and that's a problem. Okay. And everybody wants to be a teacher, and sometimes you just need people's permission to teach them. And I'm only saying this because I just came off of Truth Zones, off of his channel, and saw some bullshit happen, you know. But it is what it is. People have their favorites, and when you go against those favorites, you can pretty much guarantee that people are going to treat you a certain kind of way. But shout out to the sister who will remain nameless at this particular point, who stood up for herself in the midst of all of that. So I'm not sure how long I get. I might have about 45 minutes before this person gets here, which is going to be interesting. I haven't seen this brother in probably about 9 years, or talked to him in about 9 years. Um, we just gonna see what the growth level is, which I don't see it as being that much. The challenges has already started. you know, I'm like a stone around this bitch. You can't make me to move when I don't want to move. So, what's up, Omek? So, I want to. This is what happened. I know we got the language book. I hope some people would get that. We'll push that back a little bit. Maybe do chapter 3 at some point. Bacon, he's kind of up in the air. Ugh. I don't know if everybody's ready for it right now. So, and even this book that I'm looking at, The Treatise of the Three Imposters, I'm not sure if people are totally there, but it does fit within the narrative if you change just a little bit of what you're looking at. Like I was telling my nephew, I learned from Sesame Street. Three of these things are kind of the same, three of these things go together, but one out of them four is kind of fucked up. So when you see the similarities, you can cross-reference those with other things and um, see what it is. For example, let me give you an example. And mind you, I have already had me a shot this morning. I'm not an alcoholic, but bitch needed a whiskey sour this morning. Okay, hey Hurricane. So let me give you an example. I was having a conversation with my nephew, and I asked him. I said, we were talking about school and language and comprehension and increasing our communication by being able to increase our vocabulary. So he's like, Auntie, how you spell this word? I mean, how you say this word? And he spelled the word out, and it was pulchritude. And he's like, yeah, I like using that word right there. I said, I thought I was bad using proclivity. We started joking about that shit, right? But I was telling him, we were talking about how we learn and learning different things, whether that's in school or the indoctrination, however that goes down. And he was mentioning learning and education. And I was like, you don't want to be educated. You want to be irritated, okay, or irritated. And I learned that from Taj Sharik Bey. And so we were looking at the word. I pulled out my big dictionary. to freaking spell it, okay? And thought it wasn't in there. And so I ended up finding Eradiated, okay? And looking at the definition, it said to pull out something about shining, to make shining or something like that. But I remember to pull out. And I was talking about how we are autodidactic, that the best way to learn sometimes is through self-learning rather than being indoctrinated, dumbed down, because he's dealing with some things that they want to keep him in a box. And I'm like, man, you got to go beyond that. That's where your is. And so I was saying that with irritated, that it was basically to pull out scholarship, the best scholarship. Later on that night, one of my friends called and said, "What was that word you was telling your nephew?" And I was, oh man, that's right. I gave him the wrong word. So I went back in the dictionary because I remembered how it was spelled, um, and saw that it had to do with scholarship, if you would. It really did have to do with scholarship, um, and it had to do with gaining a wealth of knowledge rather than just learning. Those are two different things. You learn to gain wealth or knowledge. So I and I say that because when I shot back to education, just to compare the two, it talked about learning, and my stance was, from what I heard and now what I've seen, that we don't get educated because you educate animals, you train animals, okay? And in that definition, of course, it has children and then it also has animals. But irritated, I have to go with Taj saying that that's the better word, that we want to have the best type of scholarship, if you would, the greatest knowledge, if you would, a wealth of knowledge, if you would. And that includes expanding our borders and what we read, what we understand, where we travel, yada, yada, yada. So in here, what I noticed about the way that they did this work, which causes more scholarship to happen, is that they included learning or educate in the word irritate. But because it's only dealing with definitions, you would have to understand that training and education as it relates to the beginning phases is a small, it's not the big step, it's the beginning step, it's the jump off point. And some people will argue that, well, it don't matter. They both say learn, they both say educate, so it doesn't matter. It really does. And it's those, again, one of my favorite words lately, those nuances in language, in the history of where they merge different languages together, different definitions together, that, has caused us a lot of problems. And even when we're talking on these panels and talking history and facts and figures and paperwork and all this other stuff, the arguing that people do back and forth, the cutting people off, like what I just saw over there on Truth Zone's panel, as well as over there that happens on Smoke when and all of this. Um, we don't get to that greater knowledge. Okay, we're being held to um, a particular point, a particular agenda, and it comes in all forms. Because even while I was listening to the panel, and I saw the sister um, that I have a problem with and will forever have a problem with. Um, well, one of them, I can't remember which one it was, but he talked about how on Smoke's panel, channel, whatever, that people play too much over there, that they're not in there about learning. And, you got to take some of that as with a grain of salt, okay? Because sometimes all you can do is troll and laugh about the trolls that's going on, and just that's all you're going to get. Uh, And it is what it is. But um, keeping you to a certain agenda. I'm kind of losing my thought here, but keeping you to a certain agenda, a certain dumbing down. Um, Trying to remember here. basically we stay stuck and stagnant. I guess that would be where I want to conclude that part at. But the merging languages, like when you're talking about paperwork and processes and history and this, that, and the other, there are little linchpins inside the information that when we're rah-rah-rahing at each other, we can't suss those out. We can't research those. We can't expand and elaborate because everybody's all in this. I know more, you're wrong, right? I should be the one talking and telling people because X, Y, and Z. And it doesn't work that way. It works to keep you in an agenda. And what I found was interesting as well was that, one people person or a person can talk about what goes on smokes. And I know you got to have a taste for that, but then turn around and do the same shit and don't realize that they're doing the same shit. Okay. Um, so hopefully people can figure that shit out. Anyway, I don't know if I got all the way to my point there, but this book, what happened with this book? That's what I want to tell you about this book. So I'm going to open it back up on my channel. It is the Treatise of the Three Imposters. And I think this stream probably lasted about 4 hours, and I read from the PDF or Kindle books or Google books, wherever I got the shit from. And it gave us the beginning of the book. I ordered the book never came. I forgot about it until my sister sent it to me. And so I actually have the book. Um, I now have the book. Okay. So for some of you guys, I'm trying to figure out if I want to go back and read the whole thing or if I want to start from where we ended in that stream so many months ago. Um, where do I want to go with this thing? Um, but I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up the one on the Treatise of the Three Imposters so that y'all can hear the history. I'm not back over that again on how this book came into being. And it resonates with other things of people finding certain manuscripts and then some fanciful magical story happens, and then next thing you know, there's this one that is the you're really looking for, and then there's all these other offshoots of translations upon translations upon translations. Okay. And I tried to do in finding out the history about how this book was obtained, um, I tried to get the earliest rendition of it, and the is called again The Treatise of the Three Impostors and the Problem of Enlightenment. It says it's a new translation of the same, and this is a 1777 edition. What's interesting about this particular book is that, it starts out in 1707. Okay. It's not an old ass book. I mean, 300 years, you could say that's old, but as far as ancient, it is not ancient. So here we find that in the 1700s, regardless of what's going on, there is a problem with the so-called age of enlightenment. And this is where all the philosophers come out at, okay, where you find hits on all the different philosophies, Kant and Homer and, you know, Greek mythology, all that shit floats around in those areas as well as other areas. But this particular gentleman who wrote this book, he had something interesting to say because, as I said in the beginning, religion has a tendency to divide us just like colorism does, just like sexism does, just like money and the like do. Okay. Um, the haves versus the have-nots, the ones that's on the hill versus the ones in the valley, all the things that we do to divide ourselves, from hair texture to eye color to height to language to everything. And it's very hard to pull all of these things back together when when we think that some other person or people have the answer, or we ourselves, based on our skin color, have the answer. Um, we get pretty prejudiced to think, oh, because a person's skin is light, bright, and almost white, that they gotta be X, Y, and Z, or because a person's skin is black, brown, that they down with everything, or whatever the case is. And as many people have said out here, we are not monolithic. Um, as I'm talking to you guys, I know I've been up here for 17 minutes. I may have 20 minutes left before this dude gets here. So I do want to take a moment to get myself back into the rhythm of social media because I've been away for a minute doing some other things. Take a minute to just read a little bit of this. And it's not going to hit us, it's going to bother some folks. I mean, some of us already know that when we start talking about the God and Most High and all that shit, some of us already know that it's a bunch of bullshit or it's code words for something else. Um, some do not. And even though the push right now is not as bad as it was previously, um, there is still a push to sway us to a political religious agenda, and we have to understand that that is a political agenda using religion, which has a tendency to isolate um, and demonize different groups of people. I would say that in our community sometimes it's the women that get marginalized to a certain way. You can't speak like that, you can't say this, um, you should be along these lines. But we have all these people who have signed on to this religious narrative to our own demise. Okay. There was a movie that I was watching. You guys might want to check it out. Um, I got thoughts about who might have created that movie or who they might be affiliated with. But the series I binge watched two series of a series called Lioness with Zoe Zeldana and Nicole Kidman and some other folks were in there. And there was a point in the movie or in the show where the Arab guy says to the American spy, if you would, that, or the American lioness, if you would, who taught you to speak to men like that? Okay. And you can see the cultural differences between the two, if you would, um, because, you know, the other lady that was in there, she was slated to marry someone. She had to. Um, they sold her off. We can go back to the auctions. They sold her off to marry someone because they were a people of money and that was their culture. And the women stay separate from the men, but the women are just there to finally one day get married and have all these babies for these brothers and this, that, and the other. And in the movie, you can see that they knew that their life, what they would have wanted, possibly, and I'm not talking about the sex stuff, but what they would have wanted, they were never going to get that. Okay. Um, but the brother said that when he said, "Who taught you to speak like that?" It was just offensive. He wasn't used to his women speaking like that. And when I think about America sometimes and think about this social media sometimes, some people are the same way. You can't speak like that. I mean, even to watch, excuse me, I don't mean to step on nobody's toes, but I'm not talking about the person, I'm talking about the situation. Even sitting here watching the way that Mama Chief interrupted Summer up there, it was almost the same thing. You're not allowed to speak like that. You can only speak the way that I deem acceptable. And that's the problem in our community. Um, and there's a few more problems up in there, but I just that was something that I wanted to reference in here, and it'll fit somewhere along the line. But anyway, we're at 21 minutes. I got to pick up something and read here. Okay, let me see. Let's see if we can knock out like maybe 3 chapters of this real quick. Again, this is the treatise of the Three Impostors, The Problem with Enlightenment, the 1777 edition by Abraham Anderson. The publishing house is Rowman and Littlefield. So let's read a couple chapters. This might rub you the wrong way, but hopefully it will give you just a little bit of enlightenment. Okay. So here it says the Treatise of the Three Impostors, chapter 1, and it says of God. Mind you, all the preface is not that I read is not here. But it says, although it matters to all men to know the truth, there are nevertheless very few who enjoy this advantage. Some are incapable of searching it out by themselves, and others do not want to give themselves the trouble. One should therefore not be astonished that the world is filled with vain and ridiculous opinions. Nothing is better able to give them currency than ignorance. It is the only source of the false ideas which men have of the divinity, the soul, spirit, and of almost all the other objects which compose religion. Custom has prevailed. Men content themselves with the prejudices of birth and rely in the most essential things on interested persons who make it a law to themselves stubbornly to uphold received opinions and dare not destroy them for fear of destroying themselves. Section 2. What renders the evil without remedy is that after having established the false ideas men have of God, they omit nothing to engage the people to believe them without permitting it to be examined. Without permitting it to examine them. On the contrary, they give it an aversion for philosophers or the truly learned, for fear that the reason which they teach make it known the errors in which it sunk. The partisans of these absurdities have succeeded so well that it is dangerous to combat them. It matters so much, it matters too much to these impostors that the people be ignorant, to suffer it to be disabused. Thus, one is constrained to disguise the truth or to sacrifice oneself to the rage of the false learned or to the base and interested souls. And I know you guys heard me say that before about the base and unlearned souls. Um, if I would put it another way, it's in the opening of my poem. I hadn't read this book. Okay. I hadn't read this book when I wrote that poem. Excuse me. And before we move on to section 3, I'm just going to say in that poem, which you can read in my opening if you choose to, we say we are a people of this sort or that, when in fact we're a nation of praisers from way back. Yet we rationalize and disguise and otherwise deny that we have marginalized the lies and modernized the truth, only to satisfy what today we see as being acceptable to that. Those lines right there saying the same thing that this book said in the 1770s, in 1777 or 1700. Okay. We've done all kinds of things with truth, but rarely have we allowed truth to examine us. Some people do. I watched a lot of videos this morning, a lot of shorts and videos about DMX. DMX versus, let's say, Jay-Z, for example. Okay. And the shit that's going on with P. Diddy, or whatever, that stuff. And I was looking at, they said that people laughed at uh, and tried to stifle DMX, and peace be upon him. Um, but they didn't think he had it, or whatever the case was, in the executive offices of what Leon Cohen or whatever the hell his name is, the one that looks like Herman the Monster. Um, but when I looked at DMX, I said DMX is a poet, and he examines himself. He looks at himself. Even when I talk about poetry, my acronym, poetry is an acronym for me. People only evolve through reevaluating yourselves. Okay. And sometimes we don't do that. We want to point fingers. You're a lie. You lied. You this, you that. And just like the situation yesterday with Dulcinea and I don't know. I think that was Shy Son. I don't know. Um, and that debate that they had, that impromptu debate, there were some truths that were in there that were ran over for the sake of the agenda, just to say you lied rather than examining oneself. Okay, for these opinions that people have. Okay, people trying to make us eclectic, or not eclectic, monolithic. Okay, when we're more so eclectic. But let's go to chapter 3 or section 3. It says, if the people could understand into what an abyss ignorance throws it, it would soon shake off the yoke of its unworthy leaders. For it is impossible to let reason act without its discovering the truth. These impostors have sensed this so well that to prevent the good effects which it would infallibly produce, they have had an idea of painting it to us as a monster which is not capable of inspiring any good sentiment. And although they blame in a general way those who are unreasonable, they would nevertheless be annoyed if the truth were listened to. Thus, thus one sees these sworn enemies. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find out where to put this damn mic because I know y'all be listening to me breathe. Thus one sees these sworn enemies to good sense falling into continual contradictions, and it is difficult to know what they claim. If it is true that right reason is the only light which man should follow, and if the people is not as incapable of reasoning as they seek to persuade it, it is necessary that those who seek to instruct it apply themselves to rectifying its reasonings and to destroying its prejudices. Then will we see its eyes gradually and its mind convincing itself of this truth, that God is not at all what it ordinarily imagines. Oh, that they see. Okay, you know who that was. Okay, some of them sound alike. Um, hold on. Okay, hopefully, I know when the person ring the doorbell, and then we'll have to go. Okay, section 6. To accomplish this, there is a need neither for high speculations nor to penetrate far into the secrets of nature. No, one needs only a little good sense to judge that God is neither angry nor jealous, that justice and mercy are false titles which are attributed to him, and that what the prophets and apostles have said of him teaches us neither his nature nor his essence. In fact, to speak without paint, hold on, paint, okay, that's back in the back, okay, without paint, and to say that, and to say the thing as it is, must one not agree that these doctors were neither more able nor better instructed than the rest of men? That far from it, what they said on the subject of God is so gross that one must be altogether mad to believe it. Although the thing is evident enough in itself, we shall make it even more sensible by examining the question, or this question. If there is any likelihood that the prophets and apostles were otherwise formed than men, we're all the same. Okay. Because we still haven't found a woman jumping out of a man's rib. I'm just saying. Anyway, let me continue. Section 5. Everyone agrees everyone agrees that with respect to birth and the ordinary functions of life, they had nothing to distinguish themselves from the rest of men. They were engendered by men, they were born of women, and they conserved their lives in some fashion as we. As for the mind, some would have it that God animated that of the prophets far more than other men, that he communicated himself to them in a particular fashion. This is believed with as good faith. Mm-mm. This is believed with as good faith as if the thing were proved, and without considering that all men resemble each other and that they all have the same origin. It is claimed that these men were of an extraordinary temper and chosen by the divinity to announce his oracles. Now, beside the fact that they had neither more wit than the vulgar nor a more perfect understanding, what does one see in their writings which obliges us to adopt so high an opinion of them? The greater part of the things they have said is so obscure that one understands none of it. And just right here, when it says it's so, what did it say, so obscure, that reminded me of when Darvis was talking about, Darvis, was it Darvis? One of them brothers, yeah, I think it was Darvis, was talking about the maxims of law. It's like, some of that shit, you go back to the Code of Hammurabi and read that stuff, and it's like, it don't apply, but those are where the maxims supposedly came from. Or did they? Because people will point you in one direction to keep you on something so that you won't see other things, like the Society of Letters or the Nation of Letters. I can't remember what it was. Like holding up the Age of Enlightenment like it was this end all be all, and acting like you yourself aren't enlightened today, only to turn around and blame the Illuminati for the knowledge that you don't have, and the realities or false realities or suspicions that you have about their secret societies. hmm But it's coming to light with Diddy. I'm just gonna say it's coming to light with Diddy. But is it, or is it another play? But anyway, I'll leave that alone. Leave that alone. Let's continue. Um, the greater part of the things they have said is so obscure that one understands none of it, and in such poor order that it is easily to perceive that they did not understand themselves, and that they were but ignorant scoundrels. What gave occasion to the opinion that has been conceived of them was their hardihood in boasting that they got immediately from God whatever they announced to the people. Don't you see that online today? People boasting, I'm smarter, I've been here this long, I'm the one who started this community. Don't you see the same shit today? So what was happening then is the same thing that can happen today, or is happening today, in all aspects. Because if we look at, what was that? What they used to tell us in the church when they talked about church hurt. They said there ain't nothing wrong with the church. The problem is the people. Nature Boy used to say, everywhere you go, there you are. Okay? Because they know how they're using it with people, and they also know how they're using isolation, marginalization, and demonization against the people. Okay, what did you say here, Milestone? You said on the other side of the world they hate women, and that is what's going on with our society today over here. They make you want to feel the same way they do. We fight among each other, yes. Okay, and then we start standing up, and the next thing you know, they say, Milestone, are you a fit? Now we're talking about abortion and child support and shit. But anyway, I'm just saying. Okay, I got one phone call and I'm shit already, y'all. Okay, but anyway, let's continue. Um, Scoundrels, Cajun, boasting, boasting. Okay, going back to the sentence. What gave occasion for the opinion that has been conceived of them was their hardihood in boasting that they got immediately from God what announced to the people. Ridiculous, since they admit themselves that God spoke to them only in dreams. Mm, mm, okay, spoke to them only in dreams. There is nothing natural to man than dreams. In consequence, a man must be quite impudent, imp, impudent, quite vain, and quite mad to say that God speaks to him by this means. and he who puts his faith in it must be very credulous and very mad to take dreams for divine oracles. Let us suppose for a moment that God made himself understood by someone by dreams, by visions, or by such other means one might wish to imagine. Nobody is obligated to believe on his word, a man subject to error or even to lying and imposture. Thus, we see that under the ancient law, they did not have anywhere close to as much esteem for prophets as men do today. When they, and that's the same thing that's going to happen today. People think they on the mountaintop today. You find out. Don't nobody know about you, and half the people don't even like you who do know about you because you on some bullshit. But anyway, I'm sorry, my Tourette's kid. Shit, I just remembered I gotta do my hair before this nigga come. Anyway, I just took my stuff out of my head, y'all, so it's getting ready to get done. But anyway, my dog out there barking, giving me a warning. Anyway, let me see where we're at. Okay. Tired of their babble, which often tended to sow revolt. Damn it, y'all. Let me put something on my head real quick. Shit. Yep. That's my boy. All right, y'all. I apologize. Damn it. Hold on a second. This is what truck drivers do. Okay. Family, I got to go. I apologize. He got here quicker than I thought he was going to. But truck drivers be showing up on your ass. We're going to get back to this. I'm going to leave the book open and come back. Give me about an hour or so. He shouldn't be here that long. Maybe longer than that. But I'm going to come back and read this. Again, this is the Treatise of the Three Impostors, The Problem of Enlightenment by Abram Anderson. And it speaks to what we're going through today. Okay, you love my Tourette's. So do other people. But I got to go, family. I got to go. Hold on. Let me at least get him in the house real quick. Hold on a second. Let's play this video for you. My niece, y'all subscribe. Leave a thumbs up for this. Let me share this with y'all. And y'all know I got my shit back. I got my screen thing back. My whatever. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Here, let me give y'all this real quick. I'll be right back.
Trauma, a deeply distressing or disturbing experience.
Young Lee got the sauce.
Ain't no need to panic, I know where I'm headed. Remember I said it, just keep in mind how you treated me, cause I promise you'll never forget it. Now physical wounds may heal, but I know the trauma's embedded. I get tired of trying to sit still, acting all calm and collected, cause I know shit can get real. I know how I am, so I try to dead it. I told you 1,000 times, chill. How the fuck do you not get the message? These niggas swear they so real. In real life, they really just reckless. It's hard to swallow those pills when you know that they full of deception. It's cold, stressing, put you close to depression. Plan for the future, stuck in the past. It's hard to cope with the present when you don't know how to let go and make it real hard to move on from the lesson. And you ain't nothing like them, so you can't just take any suggestions. If you grow up with a lot of neglect, everything feel like a threat. First you start off real nervous, but then you learn how to step, but you still don't know what to expect. It's just hard to accept that this just is what it is. Hell nah, I ain't going for that, cause it's trauma, post-traumatic. Why I'm acting so dramatic? It's trauma, it's post-traumatic. Why I'm acting so erratic? It's trauma, post-traumatic trauma, post-traumatic trauma, post-traumatic, post-traumatic. I've been going through trauma since birth. That's part of the curse. Mama don't want me, daddy don't want me. Damn, is that what I'm worth? Life just had to throw me a curve. These grandma snatched me and had me in church, and I really feel bad for my other sisters, cause honestly they had it worse. This life's not real, they got it rehearsed. It's not skill, they copying words. And the way some of y'all be treating y'all kids, that shit really got me concerned. Never had nothing real, that's not what I learned. At least not till I got me a turn. But to this day in my relationships, I still feel like I'm not being heard. See, it's hard to outrun a memory. That shit could get menacing, going in and out and back and forth inside your head like a tennis ring. Now it's me against the world, and I feel like I don't need anything. I start getting into things, getting out, getting things, which only made me want bigger things. Now I'm walking around like I'm fixing things, till God threw me in the thick of things. Like stop, that's not how I intended things, and it's not a little thing. Cause for you, L, I got bigger things. Now I know what that really means. I gotta get through this by any means, cause it's post-traumatic. Why make it so dramatic? It's trauma. It's post-traumatic. Why make it so erratic? It's trauma. Post-traumatic trauma. Post-traumatic trauma. Post-traumatic trauma. Post-traumatic. Why make it so dramatic? It's trauma. It's post-traumatic. Why make it so erratic? It's trauma. Post-traumatic trauma. Post-traumatic trauma. Post-traumatic trauma.
Hello? Man, I just got off the line for crazy.
Peace, y'all. Okay, so I got to get offline. Yeah, I got to get offline. My company's here. We're going to chill for a minute. Old truck driver friend of mine. And that was my niece. So y'all subscribe to her. Y'all know that's Lady Lines. That's her new single that just released. Wanted you guys to hear it. Give her some more exposure out here and stuff like that. And we'll get back to the reading. Okay, like I said, we're going to finish this up. Looks like we're starting from the beginning. So we'll finish up, and this time we'll go beyond what we did the last time, see what we can get out of this, because what happened back then is the same thing that's happening today in our psyche, in our community, in our societies, and all of that, you know. So hopefully this will be helpful to you guys as we move forward, and then we'll get back to the language one. Try to do chapter 3 on the origin of language. So family, I do appreciate you guys for coming through. Sorry this was such a short one. Thought I had a little bit more time chilling out and whatever. But y'all know I'll be back. I'm inspired. It's a long weekend. Peace, family. Let me get this outro in here. Y'all know how I do. Love y'all. Peace. At the end, it started working over here. I was like, cool. All right, let me get out of here.